The Egghead arc is finally concluded, and we are officially heading into one of One Piece's most anticipated arcs, Elbaf. What is going to happen in this arc? Who's all going to show up? I have some predictions. Let's see if I'm right. All right, now that we got that big bombastic intro out of the way, you know, for the YouTube engagements and whatnot, let's slow things down a little bit. Hi, my name is Nate's Logic. I use this YouTube channel a lot for things like shorts and Twitch highlights. I've been doing that a lot lately. That's probably what a lot of y'all here know me for. But something else I did on this channel is that I used to do One Piece chapter reviews back during the start of the Egghead Island arc. I only got about like halfway into it before I wasn't able to just do them weekly anymore. That just wasn't able to. Life happens, you know. But now that Egghead is officially ended, and it looks like that Elbaf is starting, you know, I wanted to talk about it because, you know, when I started Egghead, there's a lot of mystery going around. No one knew what was happening, and now that we're at a similar place at the beginning of Elbaf, I kind of wanted to make a video about what I think might happen in it. Unlike Egghead, where it was just like, oh, we're going here now, we've kind of been anticipating Elbaf for a very long time, all the way since Little Garden, you know, 20 years ago. So there have been a lot of Elbaf prediction videos on YouTube for probably over a decade at this point. But this is about the last week anyone can ever make an Elbaf prediction video ever again. So if I want to do it, I gotta do it now. But let's go ahead and get right into it, shall we? I'm gonna go ahead and start this video. Before I get to the predictions, let's just talk about what we actually already know about Elbaf. We know that the giant pirates originated from this island, obviously. What we don't know exactly is the hierarchy on all those things. Like, it's kind of assumed that everyone in Elbaf is okay with the giant pirates of Elbaf, and it's not like, oh, those guys are weird type thing, because I know some of the chiefs at Elbaf Village used to be the old pirate captains of the Elbaf pirates. How this intertwines with Prince Loki, I'm not sure. I'm not sure who's in charge of what, if the pirates are just doing their pirate stuff, but then Prince Loki is in charge of, like, Elbaf proper, and they're just completely separated. We don't really know that for sure. What we know about the island itself is that it is past Wano in the New World. It is known to have the greatest warriors in the Grand Line. That's kind of one thing it's known for. But it's not specifically isolated the same way Wano is. We've seen non-giants come into Elbaf. I know that Mother Carmel was affiliated with the world government when she was there, but besides that, I don't think there's any other world government people on that island. It doesn't mean that it's completely isolated like Wano is, but I don't expect Elbaf to have too many visitors. We know that there's a big tree in the center of the island. We've seen a couple of like faraway shots of Elbaf in different ways. The latest chapter even named a big tree, Yggdrasil, in it. That tree, though, that they showed, it looked smaller than the big tree in some shots. If you go back to like the Big Mom flashback and some of the shots near the kid fight, it looks like that there is a huge tree in the middle, like a big wide tree that like almost encapsulates the whole island. That's the idea of what we have, and what we saw in the latest chapter, it looked a little skinnier than that. So I don't know if they're supposed to be the same tree and Oda just changed his mind, or if they're actually different trees. A lot of people have been saying that the tree on Elbaf is the treasure tree Adam, that the Sunny was made out of, the tree that Frankie got the wood from. Speaking of big tree, we also know that Saul is somewhere on Elbaf. It was shown during one of Vegapunk's flashbacks back in Egghead that Saul actually somehow survived Ohara, and then he had people go back, get the books from Ohara, and is now keeping them. He's kind of like the keeper of the books at Elbaf right now. My prediction, first prediction, ding, 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 is that those books are in the big tree at Elbaf. Because in Ohara, there was a big tree. That's where all of the archaeologists did their work, was inside the big tree. And when the big tree burned, that was kind of a big deal. And that's why they threw all the books into the lake. So my assumption is that when we get to Elbaf, and go to that tree, that's where Saul's going to be, and that's where he's going to keep the book. So it's gonna parallel a little bit. Pretty much the only other person we know besides Saul that is on Elbaf is Prince Loki. He was really only mentioned once back in Whole Cake Island, and that's about it. The only thing that we know is that he is supposedly the Prince of Elbaf. We know that he wanted to marry one of Big Mom's children, Lola, but we know that Lola did not want to marry him. We know that Big Mom tried to trick Loki into having Chiffon take Lola's place, but he saw through that and didn't like that. He was like, nah, I want Lola. We know that he was born around when Big Mom was 6 years old when she was on Elbaf. So the age difference between Lola and Loki may have been a lot, but I don't know. But besides that, we don't really know a lot about Loki. We don't know if Loki is going to be an antagonist or a protagonist in this. We don't know if he's going to even matter hardly at all in this, because people have been predicting that so many things are going to happen on Elbaf that the actual giant stuff is going to be pushed to the side. So right now, we don't know. The only little glimpses that we've gotten are the last 2 chapters that we've had where Elbaf is officially started, and we've been in this weird Lego castle. A lot of people have been saying, and this is what I was thinking a couple weeks back, is that that's actually Prince Loki's castle, and that he somehow took some of the Straw Hats and dressed them up and are now using them as like playthings. So that would insinuate that Loki is has like a very childlike mind. I know that Loki, obviously, like, Marvel Loki, mischievous, Norse god and whatnot. So there may be something there that would probably be on the lines of him being more antagonistic. I have a feeling we're going to find out really, really soon. So right now, we really don't know. My prediction, though, is that he's going to be kind of a jokey character, in all honesty. He's probably not going to be like super powerful, have Conqueror's Hockey, have a big fight with Luffy or nothing like that. He might. I'm sure he'll get punched really hard at some point in this, but I don't know. Another thing we know about Elbaf Island is that it has a bunch of forests and trees and hills and cottages. That's all we've really gotten on how Elbaf looks. It's just a very generic looking island from what we've seen of the Big Mom flashback back in Whole Cake. That's got me wondering how Oda's gonna pizzazz this place up if, just a bunch of hills and trees and log cabins is all we're really looking forward to. Like, when you think of, when we first arrived in Whole Cake, or Wano, or even Elbaf, he has, these big double spreads of, the whole islands, of, seeing, the flower capital, or seeing, the giant mountain made out of a cake, or just, the crazy technological future world at Egghead. And, what are we gonna get here to Elbaf? For one, we're already here, so there's no, oh, wow, we're here type thing. They're just people already there right now, so, and from what we've seen is that there's a big tree, but, there's been no big double spread of wow, look at the big tree on Elbaf type thing. It's just been kind of just a little panel, down in the corner of the tree, and that's all we got? Surely Oda's got something cooking. He's got something cooking. Right now, as of this moment, we don't technically know if we're on Elbaf. It has not been technically said. But the fact that we know that the Straw Hats caused a fire near Yggdrasil after they beat up a rabbit, then it kind of can be assumed, if that's the big tree of Elbaf, Yggdrasil, then it can be assumed that we're already on Elbaf. One cool thing about Elbaf, though, that's shooking things up is the Lego thing, We're inside this big, giant Lego house. I don't know if the Lego house is made for smaller people to be put in, for non-giants to be put in, or if giants are actually living in these Lego houses too, because we saw not only the castle, but we saw a little Elbaf village with what we assumed to be giants, and they also had Lego houses near them. So I assume the aesthetic would be more of Lincoln Logs than Legos, but this is interesting. This is definitely unexpected, and unexpected is the best when it comes to One Piece. One Piece is at its best when I don't know what the heck is going on, which is why I'm so interested in the beginning of Elbaf right now, because it just feels so different than a lot of other starts to a lot of these recent arcs. Another thing we know about Elbaf is that people freaking hate Big Mom. We know that from Big Mom flashback, obviously. She killed one of the old giant pirate war chiefs. Ever since then, They've always hated Big Mom. The name of Charlotte Linlin, always hated it. Right now, Big Mom is presumed dead in a volcano in Wano, and the Big Mom pirates have not been seen since that arc. But there is a chance that we could see Big Mom return, or at least his children return in some way in Elbaf. I feel like there's still a lot that could still be done with that. You know, Big Mom had that whole stuff happen to her, but she doesn't really remember any of it. The last we saw Big Mom, she didn't have her memories of what happened on Elbaf with Mother Carmel and her supposedly eating her and stuff. And we kind of just left Big Mom at that point. So I'm wondering if that's still something that is going to be talked about or mentioned or brought up at all in this new arc. There's still a lot of stuff. I feel like there's still a lot of potential for stuff to happen with Big Mom, even though I know she's dead, and I know that she doesn't need to be in the story anymore. She was beaten by Law and Kid, who are both out of the story now, though, so... So yeah, hopefully some Big Mom stuff might be mentioned or brought up or be important in this upcoming arc. The last thing that we know about Elbaf is that they have some sort of connection with the Sun God. It was technically alluded to all the way back in the Big Mom flashback in Whole Cake Island. It was brought up again by Dorian Broggie in Egghead recently, and this past chapter, someone just blatantly talked about the Sun God. Like first chapter we're in Elbaf, and someone talks about it. So definitely something going on with that. I'm interested in how all this is gonna work and how much Luffy is actually gonna learn this arc, because I feel like we learned a lot of stuff last arc, but I don't know how much Luffy actually retained of all of it. He definitely doesn't know anything about Joy Boy still. He doesn't know anything about Nika still. So we're gonna hope maybe he'll actually learn a thing or two this time around. Maybe we won't, it doesn't matter. We'll find out. Okay, so that's pretty much everything that we technically know about Elbaf that we can get from the manga out of Elbaf, unless I'm sure people have figured out a lot of other stuff by connecting this and that and this and that, but from my understanding, those are the only things we technically know about Elbaf. So now we know all that stuff, what do I think is actually going to happen in this next arc? Since really anything can happen in this arc, I'm just gonna talk about who I think is gonna be in this arc first and foremost. One, I think Shanks is gonna be in this arc, like, for sure. Back a long time ago in one of my One Piece chapter reviews, I was talking about the panel where they first showed the new 4 emperors, and I was like, that panel, that is what the final saga is going to be about. It's going to be about these 4 people. It's going to be about Blackbeard, Shanks, Luffy, and Buggy. And for the most part, I've been kind of right, but also there's been a lot of other stuff going on, but I really think that's going to start ramping up soon. But I think that panel of 4 is going to be expanded just a little bit into a couple of more people. Near the end of Vegapunk's speech back in Egghead, he was talking about people going to find the One Piece, and there was this big double spread at the very end of one of the chapters that showed the 4 emperors, but then it also showed Dragon, Sabo, Garling, Kobe, Emu, Kuzan, and a mystery person. Now that we're officially in the race to the One Piece, I think that scope of those 4 people is going to be broadened a little bit to some of those other people on the bottom. Like, I didn't think that Kobe was going to be super important to the final saga as much as he is now, but, you know, I'm excited about that. I think Kobe's cool. I think him being a part of that is really cool. It is really funny that Law and Kid aren't on there. It is really funny because of how much hype that they got in Wano about, you know, Odin being like, oh, there's this new generation is gonna come up and one of them is gonna claim the One Piece and, you know, all that and whatnot. And then we look at this big panel of all these people and like, who here's in the worst generation? There's no supernovas in there besides Luffy anymore. There's no more. Blackbeard's technically worst generation. But, you know, all the other whippersnappers, you know, none of them on that page anymore. No Law, no Kid. No one else right now. But besides the point, I think that Shanks will be in Elbaf, and I think that we're going to finally get possibly the reunion. And on top of that, I also think that Cross Guild is going to be there, because my big prediction for Elbaf is that we are going to have a Davy back fight for one of the red poneglyphs. One of my favorite chapters last year with Buggy, where he proclaimed that he wanted to go find the One Piece. Crocodile and Mihawk were like, "Oh, well, we can't just go and fight all the rest of the emperors. What, are you crazy?" And then Buggy was all like, "It's not about fighting them. We just gotta get ahead of them somehow. You know, we just gotta get some leverage." So the only real way for Cross Guild to catch up with the rest of the emperors on having enough copies of the road poneglyphs is that they're gonna have to like battle for them in like a less direct way, and I think that less direct way is a Davy back fight. So I think that's going to be a big fun thing that happens on Elbaf. What I don't know is if there's going to be a lot of giant stuff happening before that, though. Like a lot of like Elbafy giant, stuff. Because it's been a while since we've been on an island with like inhabitants, because Egghead was kind of a weird thing where there were only like the 6 satellites on the island, and that there were a bunch of like employees. There were a lot of like other scientists around, but none of them ever mattered. They all evacuated immediately. Those guys never mattered. So I'm wondering how important the actual giants on Elbaf are going to be, and how much that might intertwine with other world things coming to Elbaf, like a Davy back fight with Cross Guild and Shanks' crew and the Straw Hats. A 3-way. Be really cool. Also, my prediction, which is a big bold prediction, but I think that if there's a Davy back fight between the Straw Hats and Cross Guild, at the least, that is how we are going to get Zoro versus Mihawk. Because at this point, like, why else would they fight? I feel like there's got to be a better reason for them to fight besides, "Oh, I was destined to fight you, so now we're gonna fight because we're both pirates who are big straw. I'm gonna take your title." I feel like there can be a better way for them to have, like, a real duel, and I feel like that could be a good reason for them to duel. I don't see Cross Guild getting in a direct fight with the Straw Hats, because it's really just Mihawk and Crocodile versus all of the Straw Hats versus Gear 5 Luffy. Gear 5 Luffy could take on all of Cross Guild, like, by himself. So I think that the only real way for Cross Guild to stand a chance in actually catching up and getting road poneglyphs is through that. And I think that the final duel for the Davy back fight will be Zoro versus Mihawk. Because back in Long Ring Longland, Luffy did the last fight, his last duel with Foxy, good stuff. But I think it'd be interesting if Luffy didn't get the last fight as the captain, and if he was in like something silly, like a foot race or an eating contest or something like that. I think that would be a lot of fun. Another person I think is going to be there is probably Kid. He got destroyed right outside of Elbaf. He's gotta show back up. I don't think that Oda's gonna do him that dirty. I think he is going to eventually return in some shape or form. I don't think that he's gonna be a big rival. Maybe he'll actually have a fight with Luffy. Maybe he'll go all out. I don't know. Maybe he'll team up with some other pirates. I don't know what to do with him anymore. I don't care. I don't really... I want him to have a good ending that's less pathetic than how he ended, but at the same time, I don't know. I don't know where he fits in this final saga anymore. I don't know if we're actually going to see Law in this next arc. I know that him and Beppo got away from Blackbeard, and I would assume, just because of where everyone left Wano, that all 3 of the islands that they went to are fairly close. So there's a good chance they might also be on their way to Elbaf eventually. I don't know what he would do in Elbaf. I don't think we need him in Elbaf, but we'll see. It's just so exciting because right now, the very first chapter technically of Elbaf in the Lego castle, it's just weird mystery stuff of them just like being in a weird castle and fighting a big cat. There's no like, oh, we need to do this, we need to do that, we're looking for this and all that. They're just like, oh, we're here, I guess we need to find our crew. It's interesting right now because the Straw Hats really don't have a motive right now. The only reason they're going to Elbaf is because they said they were gonna go to Elbaf a long time ago. There's no, we need to go there to find a poneglyph. There's no, oh, our country is in shambles from a warlord or from a Yonko. We need you to save us, Luffy. We need you to liberate us. There's nothing like that going on in Elbaf right now. So it's like, what are you doing? What are you doing there, Luffy? Is he just there to have a good time? Because that's fine. That's fun. That's interesting. It feels like every single arc since, in post-time skip, from all the way from Fishman Island to definitely Wano, that he always had like I gotta go and beat Doflamingo. I gotta go beat Big Mom. I gotta go beat Elbaf. I gotta go beat, I gotta go beat Kaido, He's gotta liberate people and whatnot, but no, Luffy's just there right now. That's how the beginning of Egghead started too, and I like that. I prefer these types of things where it's just like I don't know what he's doing there. It feels fun. It feels classic, just like have an adventure. Another person I think we could see this arc is Vivi returning to the Straw Hat Pirates. The main reason I think this is mainly because Vivi was on Little Garden. Vivi was one of the people who was actually there and has actually met giants before, and a lot of the Straw Hats have not done that yet. And it's very interesting that the only people that we've seen on Elbaf so far with the new get-ups and whatnot are like the East Blue crew. We technically don't know yet if Chopper was one of the people who got taken to Elbaf early with the rest of the East Blue crew yet. He wasn't in the last chapter, but he technically wasn't in the chapter before on the ship asking where's the rest of the crew. So we don't know. Now I would love if Chopper did something important this arc, because heaven knows that he didn't do jack squat the past 2 arcs. So not even the past 3 arcs. He did some stuff in Whole Cake. He did not a whole lot in Wano, and he did nothing in Egghead. I mean, a lot of the Straw Hats didn't do anything in Egghead, so it's not completely his fault, but it still stinks. If there's a reason that he's alone or something and Oda's cooking something up for Chopper, something happened with the Chopper, ooh, I'd be so happy. So happy, so happy. Another group of characters that might show up in Elbaf could be the Capone gang. Now hear me out. We know that Lola and Loki were once a bit of a thing, so it could be interesting if we got sort of a reunion on that. It might just be in a flashback of what happened between Lola and Loki. But if Lola actually comes back to Elbaf for some odd reason, and that could be a cool way to get Capone back, because Capone is a cool guy, and I know that Lola is on Capone's ship, and it would be cool if Capone was in the story, because Capone is cool. That's my only reasoning. I really doubt that Capone's gonna be on Elbaf, but man, wouldn't that be something? Now, a supernova that I do think is gonna be on Elbaf is good old Mad Monk Rouge. We have seen nothing from him in years. We saw 1 page with him in it when they first introduced Kaido, and that is the only time post-time skip that we have seen a Rouge, the Mad Monk. A lot of people might say that Oda just forgot about him, or he just didn't have much of a use for him. There's that one little fun fact / rumor that Oda came up with all of the supernova right before he wrote that chapter, just to make Sabaody more interesting, and that he actually doesn't have a lot of plans for them now. And yeah, you can see that with some of them, In Wano, we had a lot of them. We had Hawkins, and we had, what's his name? Why do I forget his name? Crap, I actually forgot. I'm trying to remember both of their names. There's 2 of them on there, and I forgot them both. Drake. We had Diaz Drake. He kind of a disappointment. And then we also had Apu. I liked Apu. I liked the idea of Apu when we first saw him, but the numbers when him flip-flopping and him surviving a bunch and then Kid not just killing him at the very end. I hope we don't see Apu on this. Oh my gosh. Let's go back to Arouge. You know, just because we had a couple stinkers in Elbaf, you know, he might be cooking with Arouge, you know. He was definitely like the least interesting person at the time all the way back in Savity. He was just like a big smiling guy who, I mean, like him being from a Sky Island was really interesting, but that was about it. We know his power is that he was a buff guy who got even buffer. So, you know, but there's a good chance he might be doing something, and this might lead into another little Sky Islander revisit. Now, this is my Hail Mary of like of predictions right now. My hope for Elbaf is that we see the return of Enel. It's been a long time coming. We know that he went to the moon. We know that he somehow came across a bunch of little robot guys with mustaches that were made on the same island that Vegapunk was from. I still don't know how that didn't show up in Egghead. You know, I feel like that was easy pickings, like these, you know, ancient robots on the moon that were made on the same island that Vegapunk was born on, and it didn't show up on the Vegapunk arc. What was going on with that? We gotta get them now. We gotta get these robot mustachioed men here now. I think he's coming. I think it's a long time coming, but I think Enel's coming back. I think we're going to get a bit of a rematch. We know that he had a bunch of techniques called like El Thor, you know, Lightning Thor, you know, and then we're on Elbaf, which, you know, is all about the Norse Vikings. You know, there's literally a guy named Loki, Prince Loki, versus a guy with like Thor powers and stuff. Like if he doesn't show up now, then like he's not showing up again, you know, then he's just, I don't know. Maybe he's just being set up for two-piece. Because of a lot of stuff that happened during Egghead and a lot of stuff that we learned about how the Earth was actually like way lower and had more continents and that the sea levels rose in the past 800 years, I have like a small theory that when Enel was talking about he really wants to go to a special place, you know. He wanted to go to a wide world, endless as a dream. You know, he wanted to go to the divine world that floats brilliantly into the sky, to the endless Vars, or the fairy verse, or as some translations called it. But he wanted to go like to a big place where there were no seas. It's shown at the end of Skypiea that what he was talking about was the moon, but what if he was actually talking about the old Earth, like before all the sea levels rose, like before when the ancient kingdom was already there? What if that's the place he was trying to get to and not the moon? And what if all this other, but there's a lot of weird stuff going on the moon. There's space pirates, mustachioed robots, big old slab with an ancient prophecy. So that's probably the Verth thing that he was talking about. But there's a chance that and the old world may be more similar than we let on. You know, I feel like it may have been a red herring, you know, way back in the day that we were like, oh, it's the moon, but actually it was the Earth. So that's my big prediction on what might show up in Elbaf. Right now, with Loki, we still don't know if he's going to be an actual threat or a joke or nothing. We don't know how much the actual giants matter in this arc, or if it's going to be a sort of situation where it's just like a bunch of people coming to Elbaf and fighting, but it really has nothing to do with the giants. I have a feeling that the giants are obviously going to be involved in some way. The one thing is Usopp. You know, Usopp is supposed to be like our main man. He's supposed to be our main man for Elbaf. You know, he's like, I want to be a great warrior of the sea. And we're hoping that by now he's at that point. a lot of people say, oh, he already is a great, or a brave warrior of the sea is the specific thing. I would say that he is not a brave warrior of the sea. Even on like the first chapter of Elbaf, he is still getting scared by a cat, by a big giant cat. You know, he's just a little joke character, not actually fighting, you know. We didn't even see him use a weapon this whole time. We saw Nami use her tempo, but we didn't even see Usopp with a slingshot this past chapter. So what is going on with you? This is your arc, Usopp. How are we gonna go from like chapter 1 of Elbaf Usopp to the end of Elbaf Usopp? Like, what is gonna be? Like, there's got to be a significant change. I know we've been kind of let down in some regions, like with Zoro on Elbaf, and definitely Frankie on Egghead. I'm not going to get into that right now. But Usopp is the one, because we've really been expecting this one specifically for years and years. You know, there's a lot of like little theories around of like, oh, the big hammer, the big fake hammer that he had all the time, he's actually gonna get a real one because it's gonna be Thor's hammer or something like that. How's that gonna work? I don't know. I hope he just doesn't get a hand-me-down. I hope he like earns something. That hopefully will coincide with Shanks showing up and him like having some, like, if he was like in a Davy back fight with Shanks's crew, like against his dad. Now that'd be cool, because we just saw him actually do something. He did something for like the first time in decades in the manga recently. You know, Yasop actually doing something great. That I'm almost more excited for that meetup than I am Shanks and Luffy in some sorts of ways, because it's just like, what are y'all gonna say to each other? What is going on with that? So hopefully them meeting up will coincide with him doing something really cool in Elbaf. But I also hope that a lot of cool things with the rest of the Straw Hats happen in Elbaf. I like that that Sanji and Zoro and Luffy and Nami and Usopp are all together, at least, because usually they're the ones who are getting split up a lot, especially post-time skip. So the fact that all of them are together is really exciting, because I like the dynamic of those 5 a lot from back in the old day. But yeah, you know, Egghead, there was zero character growth or character change at all, or any like really emotional moments for the Straw Hats. There's a lot of great stuff in Egghead, you know, especially with like Bonnie and Kuma and Vegapunk and a little bit of Kizaru. A lot of that we got, but the actual Straw Hats themselves, we did not get a lot, which I was hoping for back when I first started talking about Egghead a couple years ago. But sadly, wow, we just didn't get a lot of that. So am I expecting that to happen in this arc? I don't know. The way that we've started like kind of focusing on Nami at the very beginning has made me hopeful that that could be the case, but you know, I'm too jaded after last arc. Like, do I expect anything to happen with Frankie this arc? No. Robin, I mean, like, if Robin meets Saul, then yeah, that'll be something crazy. You know, Jinbei had not gotten anything, you know, since the end of Whole Cake, which, you know, that's a whole debacle on what happened after the end of Whole Cake. But since he's like joined, you know, he did like he did a little bit of fighting in Wano, and then he did he did like 1 or 2 moves like in all of Egghead. He did not do a whole lot, but a lot of people didn't do a whole lot in Egghead, so, you know, wasn't their arc. And Elbaf probably isn't going to be their arc either. So, you know, is everything just gonna happen at the same time later in Lodestar or Laugh Tale or Mary Joie, you know? Is everyone's ending to their stories all just going to come to a head at that point and nothing beforehand, besides like Usopp a little bit? Maybe. I don't know. I'd like more stuff to happen, but you know, I'm not as hopeful as some other people are. I love One Piece, my favorite thing ever, but that specifically, like character growth in post time skip, you know, compared to like what we got with like Sanji and Whole Cake, you know, I don't think we're gonna hit the highs of like Sanji Whole Cake ever again with any of the rest of the Straw Hats. So not for a while, and probably not in this arc. Maybe with Usopp in this arc, but you know, I'm not keeping my hopes up. I think I've pretty much talked about everything. This is not a very. This was a rant. This was some yapping. Oh, I want to get back into talking about One Piece. I have ideas in my brain about other One Piece videos. You know, having One Piece videos on this channel, and then also having a bunch of, you know, gameplays. I've been growing a lot by posting a lot of my old TikToks into shorts onto YouTube, and that's been helping me and stuff too. So having both of these on the same channel, I don't know what the audience is gonna think of, but we will see. You know, it just depends on how these next couple of chapters go. The beginning to these new arcs. I like discussing when we're like first getting into these arcs. You know, that was a lot of fun when I started the Egghead videos, and we'll see if I can continue that or not in the future in Elbaf. Yeah, thank y'all for watching. Besides One Piece videos, of course, make a bunch of gameplay videos with friends, without friends. You know, this thing in the background might be a little bit of a sneak peek for a video coming up soon. So just be on the lookout for that if you care about that, because I enjoy making little highlight videos with my friends. And I stream on Twitch sometimes too, but I might look into streaming on YouTube as well in the future. But yeah, I'm not good at keeping up with my promises on actually making content, but I'm trying to change that, you know, and me saying things sometimes helps, but sometimes it doesn't. So we'll have to see. But in the meantime, thank y'all for watching. Love yourself, love others, love your neighbors, love God, buy local, and have a good day, I do declare.